Welcome to the Mostly Potted at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 45 of our weekly All Things Horror podcasts. When America got soft and complacent in the PG-13 horror movies, one country said, we will show them how superior culture does it.
Yes.
It's very, very bad French accent. I apologize to all my French friends. But yes, we're going to go over the new French horror movies, probably the three most famous of them. High Tension, which is kind of the one that opened a lot of doors for these other ones here. And then Inside and Martyrs, which are probably the best known of the follow-up movies that happened in that new French horror genre. Well, they're all in the mid, like the early aughts, right? Isn't that what they
2003 was High Tension, and 07 and 08, respectively, for Inside and Martyrs.
Yep. So yeah, this is
we, like I said, we definitely got soft in our horror movie, and for all our listeners know, this is when Salem kind of stepped away from horror.
I stepped away from most horror. I did watch these movies though. These movies I watched. Well, I should say High Tension I watched right when it came out. I actually rented it from a video store because it was early enough to where video stores were still around in the early 2000s. And then Inside and Martyrs I had watched later on. I had a friend of mine that was very into kind of foreign horror. You know, any kind of, you know, crazy, you know, extreme horror, and so he turned me onto those a little bit later on. So it was probably wasn't quite 10 years after they came out, but it's, you know, later than, you know, that they were available. So
right, makes sense. Like I said, I don't think I knew bits and pieces of these. High Tension I saw, that was probably about it. So let's get into this thing, shall we?
Yes. So we will start with we're going in chronological order here. We'll go at High Tension, which was 2003.
Yes.
So we we'll just start with the recap here. Okay, so there's two girls, Marie and Alex. Yes. Marie is the one with the blonde, like pixie cut, very early 2000s fashion, with the kind of crop top with the tight low rise jeans, you know.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, they're on a girls' trip. They're going to Alex's family's house, I guess, to study, I believe is what they were trying to do. That I guess they don't really totally talk about what they're doing. Not that it really matters, but I think they were going there to study because she lives in a farm in like the middle of nowhere. And I will say I was confused when I was watching this movie, simply because I had no idea that the French drove on the same side of the road that we do. I assumed that all of Europe drove on the wrong side of the road. And to be fair, almost all of the countries do. I think France is one of the rarities that drive on the same side as us. So yeah, I was like, are they making this? Is this supposed to be like an American French movie? Like they're speaking French, but they're driving on the right side of the road. It's like, is this supposed to be America? Because it's kind of like rural, and we don't really see rural, you know, European movies in general, right? Usually more.
And also, I will point out that they seem to be listening to like American music too. Most
of the time, yeah. I would say like 2/3 of the music in this movie is American, like music where they're singing in English.
Yes,
there are some French songs. I'm not gonna say all of them are in English, but yeah, most of them are in English. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's why I was like, I don't. Is this supposed to be American? I don't know what's going on. But anyway, so yeah, there's two girls on like this kind of road trip. I think they're college students. They're going to like her house in the middle of nowhere to study because there won't be any distractions, I think, is what they're trying to do. So they're going.
They point out they have lots of sex and drink a lot. So one of them is alcoholic. One of them is boy crazy. So yeah, they said they both need to get out of the city.
Right. Yeah. So they need like time in this rural area where there's no distractions, so they can like get their studying done. So they're driving out there. As they're driving out there, we are gifted with a scene of like a kind of a gruff looking guy in like a Jeepers Creepers truck.
Totally Jeepers Creepers truck.
I believe it's like the same truck. It looks like, well, not the same physical truck, but the same like model of truck. It looks just like. Anyway, and he's giving himself fellatio with a severed head. Okay, so you're starting off. This is a great scene to start off with because you're like, oh wow, okay, it's gonna be this kind of movie, right? So then, after he finishes, he throws the head out the window of the truck and then drives away, and then that's how we're introduced to the farmhouse that is Alex's parents' house. So they get there, we go in, we see there's mom and there's dad and there's little brother who's like dressed up like a cowboy. Again, there's so many weird like kind of reach outs to like American culture in this movie. That's why I was very confused. Like they're in like a rural farm area and the little boy's dressed up like a cowboy. I'm like, this is supposed to be France. Reminds me of Texas or something.
Oh, very much Texas.
Yeah, I was like, this is it's a very bizarre thing. Anyway, so they're they kind of have a very limited interaction, I would say. And then they're like, basically, because it's late, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go to bed and we're gonna hit the books early tomorrow. We get a kind of a brief introduction to mom, dad, and the little boy. So yeah, he's like, okay, Marie, here's your guest room. You're staying here. Everybody else is going to bed. Just relax. So Marie goes out for a smoke. She comes back in. I think she sees the dog. I was like, she sees somebody, but it's just the dog. She sees the dog and she says goodnight. And then she goes upstairs and puts on headphones and is playing. I don't know what the song is, but it's definitely in English. It's like a reggae song in English.
It almost sounds like Sublime a bit.
Yeah, right. And then she proceeds to pleasure herself while listening to this music. And while that is happening, the Jeeper Creeper truck guy comes back and is like, knocking on the door, ringing the doorbell. So the dad gets up, goes down there like, what the hell is going on here? And he just gets like stabbed in the face with like a straight razor, right? So there's like this kind of gruff dude just standing out there, right? And he just basically walks in, manhandles the dad around quite a bit, sticks his head through the banister of the stairs, so his head's stuck. And then he takes like this big, like, I don't know, dresser kind of like table, like side table, but anyway, it's like big and heavy and made of wood, and just kicks it at him, and it just knocks his head off.
Yeah.
And blood just sprays all over the place. So that he just, at this point, he just kind of goes like just into the house. Marie kind of like realizes that something's going on at this point. So she kind of gets up, she looks down, she sees that bad things are happening, right? So she tries to go back in her room, and she tries to get this phone that's like on top of this dresser, and she thinks that the phone plug is behind the dresser, so she spends a weirdly strange amount of time trying to pull this wardrobe away from the wall. She hears the footsteps going closer to her, so she puts the thing back. We have this scene where, she's hiding in the room, and the guy is looking for her in the room. But she manages to avoid him by, curling up in the corner. He does look under the bed, but he only looks on one side, and she's, kind of curled up on the other side. So he leaves the room, and, goes into another room, and she could hear him like attacking other people in the house, but she's like trying to get the phone plugged in. So she pulls this wardrobe away from the wall, and it wasn't the phone plug, it was a TV plug, which is some kind of European plug that I don't know what that was. But she specifically calls it a TV plug, so I'm guessing like a cable connection or something.
Something like that, yeah.
So she basically goes, okay, well, I need to find this other phone. So she goes in like the dad's den where there's a cordless phone, and she finds like the cradle for the cordless phone. For our Millennial and Gen Z people, a cordless phone. The cradle, the bottom part, the charger is still plugged into the phone cable in the wall, but the phone itself can be moved away from it. So she finds the cradle, but she can't find the actual phone itself. And she hears noise, they're coming, and so she goes and hides in the closet of the den, and it's one of those, the typical closet with the slats that you can see through. The mom comes in there, obviously already kind of roughed up and scared. And she finds the phone immediately. It was like stuck behind some papers on the desk. She goes to make a call, and the dude comes in and just, murders this shit out of her, like real bad. Like cuts her all up and, cuts her neck, like blood is spraying all over the place, all over the closet door where she's in, all over the floor, blah, blah. So yeah, dude, gets done killing her. He gets up and leaves. And so she goes to try to call, use the phone because the phone's out now. And the phone is like just making crackling noises. It's not working. And she kind of witnesses the mom dying, and the mom just kind of, gives her like a why, thing before she finally dies. So she is now, trying to figure out what else to do. She goes into Alex's room, and she sees that Alex has been chained up, and like, the chains are padlocked, and she's got like a gag, but it's like I don't know, it looks like a chain with like just a piece of plastic over it that's in her mouth. It looks very uncomfortable.
A homemade ball gag.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So she can't talk, and she's like, trying to say like, I'm trying to get us out of here. I'm trying to, call, but the phone's not working. Like, she's trying to get her out, but obviously she can't. There's like metal chains and padlocks, like she's not used to. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go use the phone downstairs. I'll be back. And so Alex is just, like crying at this point. So she goes downstairs. She finds the kitchen phone, which is just like a wall-mounted phone. And she goes to use it, but it's dead. And then we get a kind of a cut to see outside the house where like the phone line has been cut. Yeah. So like none of the phones are going to work at this point. So at this point, she goes back up to Alex and is basically like, I can't let him know there's somebody else in the house, but I'm going to try to get us help. So he comes back, she hides. He basically brings Alex out to the Jeepers Creeper truck, puts her in the truck. Marie grabs a knife and then goes out to the truck to again try to save her, but she's still like locked up, so there's not much she can do. But he comes back around and she's like sitting there with the knife, like ready to stab him. But instead of coming into the doorway where she's waiting for him, he just pushes the door closed. So it's like a sliding van door. And then gets in the truck. And then, before that happens, the cowboy kid runs into the cornfield. Yeah. And the guy just chases him down and shoots him with a shotgun that he had in his truck. So everybody is now dead except for Marie and Alex. So they're riding in the truck. Going, they don't know where, they're just going somewhere. And so Marie's kind of trying to calm Alex down, and Alex just seems like she's just out of it, right? She's just freaking out, crying, like she doesn't know what's going on. So she's kind of trying to like pry the door open with the knife. She does manage to get the door open. So she waits until they stop, and they stop at a gas station. You'd think he would have like gassed up his Creepmobile before he went murdering, but I guess not.
Poor planning on his part.
Yeah, to be fair, he was drinking a lot.
Also, it's not.
What?
Also, it's also a gas guzzler, and he likes his. What was he drinking?
He was drinking. Well, he was drinking Jack Daniels, but in this next scene, he asks for J&B.
Which is
and then he asks for Campbell. I don't know. These are probably bad whiskeys, I guess. I don't know.
I assume J&B was Jim Beam. So,
well, J&B is a whiskey. It's like a Canadian whiskey.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so he stops and he's pumping gas, and she manages to sneak out of the truck. She moves like to the side of the truck where he can't see, and she runs into the store. And she sees the clerk guy, and she's like, she tells him to call the police, and he just kind of sitting there like, what do you mean? And so she hides behind the shelves. And then the guy comes in. He obviously knows the clerk, right? He's calling him like, "Hey,
calls
Jimmy,"
him by name.
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, Jimmy," and he's whatever, paying for the gas, and he's getting like some snacks and stuff. And then he asks him to go unlock the liquor cabinet because he wants a bottle of J&B. Yeah. So the liquor cabinet is in the back of the store on the other side. Like where in an American store, this is where the coolers would be, like on the other side of the gas station. So he walks him over there, he unlocks it, and he grabs the bottle of J&B, and he's like, "Oh, wait, how about a bottle of Campbell? You got that?" Which is up on like the top shelf. So he goes to grab that, and as he comes down, he just like hits him with his axe, like right in the chest.
Yeah.
And so he sees that the clerk guy wasn't looking at him, but looked like specifically in the direction of this shelf. So he got suspicious that somebody else was there. So she goes and hides in the bathroom. The creepy dude looks in all the bathroom stalls and everything and doesn't find anything. And so then he leaves, and then she calls the police, and the police are like, "Well, where are you?" She's like, "I don't know. I'm at a gas station." He's like, "Okay, there's a lot of gas stations. Which gas station are you at?" And she's just like, "Just come here." And he's like, "Well, I need to know where you are." I mean, he going back and forth, and she's like, "Oh, you're useless." And just hangs up. So like, okay, yeah, it's genius. Like instead of looking for the address, she just like gives up.
Well, it's a very Argento-esque way of dealing with the cops.
Well, if it was an Argento movie, she wouldn't even bother calling the cops.
That's true too.
They would just show up at the very end. So as this is happening, he gets in the truck and drives away. And she's like, "Oh no, he's getting away." So she basically takes the clerk's car, which is a I don't know, like an American sports car. It is a Ford, right? Yeah. But it has a Confederate flag license plate on the back, which is like one. If you're trying to do like the Dukes of Hazzard thing, then it should be a Dodge Charger, right? 2, why the hell do they have Confederate flags in France? Because, well, okay, there's a lot of reasons why. One, like obviously the Confederacy and the whole Southern thing was not in France, and 2, French did not support the Confederacy during this Civil War, so I don't understand how that worked. Anyway, so she's chasing him. He ends up turning down like a dirt road kind of thing. He's like chasing her, the guy through these dirt roads. It's winding and going. And at some point, they both turn their lights off so that they don't, see each other or whatever. And she gets kind of turned around and can't find him anymore. And then he pops up behind her.
Keeper style.
Right. Yeah. And she had taken the gun that was like behind the counter in the gas station, but then she grabs the gun to go to do something, and like the guy like holds his hand out of the window and like shows her that he has the bullets from the gun. And so she opens the gun and sees that it doesn't have any bullets, and then now he's like chasing. So they're chasing each other. He runs her off the road. And she gets out, and then they're like running through the forest for a while, and then they go to like like a greenhouse? It's like an old rundown like greenhouse. With instead of like glass ceiling, it's got like just plastic ceiling.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're going back and forth. There. He tricks her by like, he ties his flashlight to the ceiling, to make it look like he's looking around for her. And so she like takes like a piece of wood and wraps barbed wire around it and goes to hit him with it. But, obviously he wasn't there. That was just a flashlight. So then, they fighting back and forth. And it looks like she's going to die, because he like wraps plastic around her head. And then she comes back, and then she wraps plastic around his head and is like beating him to death with this, piece of wood with barbed wire all over it. And then she finally like defeats him. She grabs his keys and goes back to the truck. Now, at this point, we cut back to the gas station where the police have, like, I guess, finally figured out which gas station it is. And they basically look at the footage of what's happening or what has happened there, and we see that it wasn't the creepy guy who killed the clerk with an axe. It was, of course, Marie herself did it. So then we cut back to Marie and Alex in the truck to where Marie unlocks Alex finally, and Alex is now asking her, like, why would you kill my whole family? Like, what is wrong with you? At this point, we realize that, yeah, there is no guy. It was her the whole time. She was just, like, I guess, visualizing the guy as doing these horrible things instead of her. And that was, like, the other, I guess, her other personality kind of thing.
Right.
That apparently got unlocked when she was pleasuring herself listening to reggae music. So don't do that, kids. Yeah, she ends up, like, escaping because Maria's, like, very confused as to what's going on. She's running away. And then as she's running away, we see, like, Marie change back and forth between crazy, like, Michael Myers looking guy and, like, he's got, like, the coveralls, right? Like, chasing her with, like, this, bloody beat up face from getting smashed with the wood and the barbed wire. And it switches back and forth between him and Marie. And she's got, like, this big, like, it's not a chainsaw. It's like a big buzz saw. It's like a big giant circular saw. Yeah. Well, whatever. It's a big, looks like the Jaws of Life kind of thing. Anyway, so they're chasing her, through the woods and stuff. And she ends up getting in a car, or no, she finds a dude that, like, she gets to a road and she finds a guy that was just driving. And then they get in the car and they try to drive and they can't because the car won't start now. So then she attacks the car and kills the guy through the windshield with the saw. And then she's, like, smashing the windows on the side, like, trying to get Alex. And Alex has crawled out through the windshield and is, like, halfway down the road by the time she realizes she's no longer there. And then she, like, goes after her, and then Alex tricks her by saying, "Oh, I love you. I loved you the whole time." And then, like, that's all Marie wanted, is she was, like, in love with Alex. And, like, I guess this all triggered because Alex didn't love her or whatever. So she ends up, like, stabbing her through the chest with a crowbar, which that would take a lot of strength, I guess, to do. It'd be very uncomfortable. But then she, essentially gets stopped. Appears to be dead, but from what we've seen in the very, very beginning and the very, very end, it looks like she survived.
Yeah.
But she's now, like, locked up.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, the big twist was that she was the killer the whole time. The end.
Yes. The end. Fiend.
El Fiend.
El Fiend. So once you go for the note of this, you watched this before, and this is a rewatch for you. I mean, was it enough time that you maybe forgotten the pieces of it, or was there anything new on the rewatch for you?
I mean, this is the kind of movie that, like, if you've seen it, like, the only piece that you wouldn't forget is the only piece that really matters, like, because you've seen it before, so you already know that she is the killer the whole time. Right. So you could forget everything else that happens. That doesn't matter. As long as you remember that one very important thing, it's like, the whole movie is kind of, I'm not going to say ruined. It's just, what's going on the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like, this time, because I think I only watched it the one time before. I didn't watch it multiple times, but
nearly 20 years ago. Yeah.
So, I mean, I still remembered it fairly well. I mean, it wasn't, I pretty much remembered the whole thing. But I was, like, deliberately trying to see if there was, like, anything hinting that this wasn't just a dude, it was her. And there's none. There's absolutely not. There are, like, blatant things happening that are, like, precluding you from believing that this is the one single person. And I'm guessing you're probably seeing it from her eyes, and that's why that doesn't make sense. Because, obviously she's, like, some kind of, I don't know, schizophrenic or something where she's like, fabricating a fantasy reality. So like, obviously the things that don't make sense, you're seeing them from her eyes, not from other people.
So you're saying she's an unreliable narrator.
Correct.
Okay. Which I get that. I can see that.
So if you look through it through those eyes, it's not that bad. But again, watching it, thinking through that, like it was just blatantly obvious.
Right. And yeah, and this is, I've seen bits and pieces of it. As we discussed off recording, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've seen this. This is what I believe happens. And I was right. And it's on a lot of lists, but not many people I knew have seen these growing up. Especially because they're foreign horror movies. And as we found out with like Argento, we're probably gonna find out with Fulci, we may have really missed out on these as well. And I think this was a good form that could have been an American movie. It felt like it would have been, if we didn't get off track with the PG-13 crap that we got, this was kind of in line of where our movies were going to be in America. Kind of like a mix of Joyride and Jeepers Creepers.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, but I think this is like the direction that American horror should have been going in.
Yes. And
instead it was like regressing back into not good. And so, other countries were trying to pick up the slack. And I think this movie did a great job with filling in that blank that wasn't there.
Right. I think High Tension made people realize, like, let's do Saw, and Eli Roth came around.
Right. Well, yeah, I think
veered hard back into this.
Right. Yeah, and then I guess High Tension pretty much opened the door for this stuff, but like the other two movies that we're going to talk about kind of went that step further, where they did a little bit more extreme stuff. Still not crazy extreme, and that was like the new French Extremity that resulted from all of this. That is like where the crazy stuff went, but that usually relied on a lot more like weird, sexy stuff. There was a lot of more sexual violence involved. Like, these don't really have a lot of sexual violence. They're just more like just violence.
No, and you're right. That new French past stuff after this we'll eventually get to it, was more of the 2 weeks ago episode of the 70s Raw. It got to that level again. Right.
Well, yeah, if you look at the examples of like, where it went, I mean, like a Serbian film is on that list. So like that's the level of stuff in. So I don't know if you want to go there, man. I mean, I've already been there. I don't really want to go back. It's not a pleasant ride. But it's movies in that vein are what resulted from this. So like, I like where it starts. I don't like where it ends. But I understand it needed to be done. You know what I mean? Yes. It was an itch that needed to be scratched by a lot of people, and it's there. It's just, I'm not a huge fan of it.
And for me, I'll say this for all these movies, is especially with the Argento stuff we've done, is I felt like this could have been in Argento's, lineup of movies he could have done, especially like High Tension. As my first thought is like, you don't see this coming. It's just like the Tenebra,
right.
There's no clues, zero
exactly.
information.
Yeah, there's no way you can figure that out. There's nothing leading you to that place, right.
And I knew this. I'm going, so she was imagining herself being the Jeepers Creepers Michael Myers getting head from a head.
Right. Yeah.
Like that really throws you off.
Yeah. I remember watching the first time. I was like, what? I was like, there's no way. I was literally looking for clues on like who it might be.
Yeah.
And it was like blatantly, like I ruled her completely out because of the scenes and how they worked out. And like, there's no way.
Correct.
But, whatever.
All right. So what are your highlights for this movie?
I mean, highlights in this one, I really like the fact that both the kind of, I don't want to call her protagonist. I guess like Alex is kind of like the the final girl protagonist, but she's not really the main character.
No.
The main character is the villain, but both Marie and Alex are protagonist and villain, right?
Yep.
They're both women, and especially in this kind of genre, that's usually rare.
Oh, very rare.
Right. So I'd say I like that they were both women, and there wasn't anything. I mean, obviously you got fooled by like the guy was killing people, but it wasn't actually the guy; it was her. But it's interesting that at the end it ends up being two women. And it ends up being like a stalker love story between two women, which is also very rare.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's lots of twists and turns that I thought were great. I like the effects. The effects were pretty cool in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not like outrageously great or anything, but they're fun. Lots of blood spraying and it's realistic. Kind of damage and viscera and stuff. And that's fun. I mean, I love the story. I mean, I like that twist. I think that's a really cool twist. And the first time you watch it, you don't really see it coming.
No.
Obviously, I've seen it before. I knew it was coming. You at least knew of it before you watched it. But yeah, the first time you watch it, you're like, what? Like there's no way. And also, there was a really cool Muse song that I like that was in the movie, because this is like the dawn of Muse. Like 2003 was like when they were first coming around.
Right, it's kind of like them and the Killers and all that type of genre wave of whatever you want to call it, not post emo.
Well, who knows, dude? There's so many different genres, but I think they call it. I think it's still considered post punk.
Okay.
Like a neo post punk,
like alt rock, return of alt rock.
Well, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. This wasn't exceptionally over the top gory. Stuff like that. I mean, as I mentioned, like Eli Roth or Argento's, they are like, 10 gallons of blood inside one person sometimes.
Right.
I felt like it was all of these seemed like a realistic amount of blood inside a person.
Yeah. It's not like blood showers everywhere. There is a lot of blood, but it's not like not an unreasonable amount of blood.
Correct. And really, as you're right, the stalker killer twist, and very well done. I mean, were there any clues? No, it's not like you go back and watch Scream like, okay, this person's been absent here, this person's been absent here. But as we discussed, if you look at this from a unreliable narrator point of view, then yes, you can kind of see that. Like, the battle with her and the killer is her identity taken over at that point in time.
Right.
And then when, her who she loves, Alex, starts to run away, that's where you see that shift back into it. So yeah, was she bludgeoned in the face multiple times and suffocated? No, that did not happen.
Well, I mean, maybe she did it to herself.
I mean,
that's possible.
Maybe, but her face was not nearly as damaged when we went back to her. And I mean, I think we do see this sometimes, especially with like psychological horror or slashers. It tends to be more women in that aspect, I would say. Not like outright slashers, not like the big ones, but like psychological stuff, or stuff you have to get inside people's heads and love story. It does tend to be more women there than anything else. But no, I think everything was well done. I think acting was well done. I think everything was it's exactly what it needed to be. Did it look like an early 2000s movie? Yeah. But but had it been English, you would have thought, okay, yeah, this is American, hands down.
Right.
I'll just roll in my low points. Speaking of American, as you point out, yeah, the Americanness of it was, I don't know if that was the point. I don't know if that was the idea of the big middle finger to the United States with the state that horror was in. Like, look, we can make an American looking movie with the South better than you can right now. And that's my guess as to why it's that way. Because if not, why is the boy dressed out as a cowboy? Why do they have the Confederate flag? And the other little point would be, if this is actually Marie doing all the stuff, she is stupidly strong.
Well, yeah. I mean,
to be able to take off someone's head with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's just some parts that are like, I'll give a couple of examples to how there's no way you could figure this out ahead of time. And like, one is like, okay, we see the guy, with the severed head in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, they're not even at the house yet. They're still on the road somewhere. So like, okay, we're being shown this guy as being present on the farm before they even get there. So like, okay, obviously this guy has been there before they were there. When they were locked in the back of the truck, right? Like she's like trying to break open the door and she's interacting with Alex, like touching her and like moving her around. Like she's actually there. But who's driving the truck? Like what? Like how is that happening? I don't understand how that's happening. Like that's happening in the back of the truck, but the truck is moving when it's happening. Like I don't. Again, it's like impossible.
Unless the truck's not actually moving.
Right. I'm just saying it's impossible in the context that they give you that to figure out that it's two different people. Or like, like when they're in the gas station, like the guy knows the attendant guy, calls him by name.
Yes.
Right. So like, okay, how the hell would she know his name? Or like, you know what I mean? There's no way that you could know that there was two different people. It's just not possible. And then of course, poor Hendrix. I felt bad for the dog. He was like a Saint Bernard, just a big baby. He gets stabbed.
Oh, he was a good boy.
Yeah,
he was absolutely a good boy.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe like rural France has like a thing for America. I don't know. It's possible, I guess. I don't know. I've never been to rural France. I've never been to France, so I guess I can't judge.
You have any other low points?
No.
No? Same things, okay. All right. So as we are doing number of cigarettes out of 10, what would you give this movie? How many cigarettes out of 10?
Hot tension, I will give 8 cigarettes out of 10.
8 cigarettes out of 10?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's I'm fine that I may clearly have missed these movies when they came out, at least other than High Tension. I wish I knew about these ahead of time, just like I'm finding out with Argento that, I don't know if these weren't available at my video store growing up or what, because these seem right up my alley. And I'll say this right now is, as we did the 70s Raw stuff a couple weeks ago, and we were discussing too, these didn't bother me nearly as much as, I Spit in Your Grave. And it's probably because you and I are so, jaded to the body horror.
Yeah. Like I said, I've watched a lot of Cronenberg movies. Like body horror is not something that really bothers me all that much. There's a couple of scenes in these next two that made me cringe a bit because they're disturbing. But I'd say overall the Raw movies do bother me more, and I think that's just because it's got that weird like sexual humiliation edge to it, and I think that I don't know if it's our culture or what it is, but that to me seems so much worse. You just murder, stab people.
Absolutely.
Is bad, right? Yes, but like that's normal bad. So we're like sexual humiliation is like extra bad.
Yeah, and that's why Serbian film really hits that the worst.
Yeah, Serbian film is everything everything all together all at once. That's what that's.
Yeah. And for all that, on the slash rewatch kind of first watch on this one. I'm going 8.5 because it would be higher if it made more sense, but like execution wise, this is what we needed 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Hands down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this movie was. I remember it was pushed pretty hard to like America because I remember renting it at a normal video store. The other two in this list, not so much. Like I said, I had a friend of mine turn me on to him that was into like foreign horror. Like, you know, he followed that stuff, so he knew about it. But I never saw them in a video store. I never saw them advertised anywhere.
No.
But High Tension, I did. I don't know how or when, but I know I rented it. I just don't know how I knew about it, but I did.
Right. And, you know, this is kind of once again of we are diving into other countries' horror movies that we really missed out on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these three are, I mean, yeah, High Tension is enough that I knew about it too. But I'd say it's only in the past 5 years I really hear about Inside and Martyrs. Like before that, I had zero knowledge of them. And that's a shame.
Yeah. I want to say it was probably like 2010-ish, 2010, 2012-ish. Is when I got turned on to them, somewhere around there. So yeah, several years after they came out. But
right. Yeah. All right. Ready to move on to the next one?
Mm-hmm. Are you ready?
I am ready. So the next one on this is Inside, which came out in 2007. And you know, surprise to our listeners, these movies my wife was not going to watch with me. Inside probably most of all.
I'd say to be fair, this one's probably the worst as far as the body horror part goes.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, we'll touch base on the Inside and Martyrs remakes, which have been abysmally rated on the American remakes. We will touch those probably on unnecessary remakes part, whatever we're gonna do for it. Yeah, so Inside, you know, warning for anyone who is pregnant, don't watch it while pregnant or anything like that, because it's a hard pregnancy horror body horror movie.
Yep.
So essentially we start off with I'm gonna say this right now, this is as much of a Christmas movie as The Dorm That Dripped Blood.
Yeah, so it's mentioned that it's Christmas and that's it.
Yes. I thought there was a snow in France around Christmas, but maybe I'm...
Well, they did say it was cold, but there was definitely no snow.
Right. So we start off with a car crash. We see, you know, a pregnant woman in the car with husband there clearly dead. You know, very pregnant. You know, we get weird CGI baby kind of right away in utero in that as well. And then just kind of pan out on the car crash scene. And then we get introduced to our main protagonist, Sarah, who is working. No, is her mother there with her right away, or is she at the hospital next?
I think when they go in on her, I think she's waiting like in the lobby of the hospital.
Yeah,
and her mother is with her at that time. Yes.
Yeah, so you know she's overdue. Let's just say that. They don't say how long, how many days. They're kind of making prep. She's doing the whole ultrasound and all that stuff. And she's talking to her mother, who she calls by her first name. You can tell that by doing that, she is in a strained relationship with her mother. And they said, I don't know, it's been a few months after the car crash, so she's still dealing with the death of her husband and her baby being overdue. And her mother's kind of there talking to her like, hey, you should come to, you know, Christmas dinner, which they for Christmas Eve. and all that jazz. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to be alone, because she's like the doctor said that if she doesn't pop, they're going to induce labor the next day.
Yeah, on Christmas morning.
Correct. And as someone who has 3 kids, you don't go out and do things if you're in that state. You don't go, hey, I'm going to go travel away, not be potentially farther away. Now, granted, she's going to be with family, so it may have been a better thing as opposed to being alone, because, if shit goes horribly wrong, it's better to have someone there at times if you can. So she is kind of sitting there in the waiting room, and we get like a creepy nurse, is like, you can tell she's French because she's smoking type thing, like right in front of the pregnant woman. Starts creepily touching her belly and talking about like, oh, how her first kid was a stillborn, of her like 3 or 4 she's had, that you're very lucky, and just kind of like, I don't know how else to explain it, just like very touchy to a pregnant woman. And there are people in the world that are like that. There are people like, oh, you're pregnant, and just start touching the pregnant woman's belly and stuff like that. It's disturbing to see it in real life as well as the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I've heard people complain about that. I can definitely tell you, I don't want anything to do with the pregnant woman, so I'm not the problem. But I do know that other people, I've heard lots of people complaining about people just randomly touching them. Like, oh, how's your baby? Like, I barely know you. Why are you touching me?
Right. And that she gave that, the nurse gave off that like very vibes, like, okay, stay away from me. Like, great conversation. You can just go away. Just go away. And then we find out she's, a photographer. She's talking to her mom's asking like, oh, have you essentially, I feel like her mom's asked if she's, kicking boots with her boss.
Well, I think she is trying to suggest that she should get with her boss, because the boss is like the boss, and he's probably, stable and rich or whatever. She's just doing mom stuff. I would say a couple of months after the death of your husband, when you're still pregnant with his child, is probably not the best time to be going hunting for a new mate. I'm just, throwing that out there.
No. So we get introductions, the boss, like, I would invite you to dinner, but I don't think you're going to. So he knows her well enough. And all that jazz. So he's like, hey, come pick me up in the morning. Because the mom's like, well, who's going to take you in? It's like, oh, Jean-Pierre is going to. He gave him like the janitor key ring to her house.
Right.
Giant key ring. I'm throwing that out there. So she still kind of does a little bit of work. She goes to a park and takes pictures of mother and father playing with their kid, and just reminiscence, has a little flashback every once in a while. And then she eventually goes home, and she's, calling Jean-Pierre saying, hey, just make sure we're okay. But she's like, oh, you're probably stuffing your face right now. And all that stuff. So all of a sudden, then she gets a knock at the door. And the age-old adage of, my car's broken down, I kind of come and use your phone, 2007. Don't you have a cell phone? Which is a very valid question, even in 2007, because not everyone had one. And, the excuse of, oh, yes, but my battery's dead. In 2007, yeah, it's very accurate.
Yeah, I got my first cell phone in 2007. So,
right.
Yes, that's when everybody was getting one, because it was, I was like one of the last people to get one.
Yeah. So, and she's like, no, you know what? No, I'm very unnerving. Like, she goes through the people, and just like a dark silhouette figure. Can't really see anything. She's like, no, my husband has to go to work. He is sleeping. And the woman goes, no, he's not, Sarah. He's dead. How the hell do you know that? It's a very valid question as well. At that point in time, yeah, you're very unnerving. And she kind of goes through the house, starts locking all the stuff. She's at the side window. She gets her camera, starts trying to take pictures of her to see her, because she's still that dark silhouette through the window. So She calls the cops. This time she knows where she is, unlike the last person, which is fair. They come in, they're like, hey, the person's already gone. This is really weird. We're gonna have like a patrol car kind of drive around throughout the night, right? Just make sure everything's okay. She's really appreciative of the cops and their work and how nice they are. So definitely not an Argento-esque movie here for that reason alone.
Right.
And she kind of like, I think she falls asleep a little bit, but then she does something that I don't know, developing photos and the chemicals involved, but I can't imagine it's good for a pregnant woman to be around all that stuff. I don't know.
They're not like porcelain dolls, man. They can do stuff.
I know, but it's just the fumes. So she starts developing the pictures, and she's able to see her. She's like, oh, she looks familiar. She's like, wait, why have I seen her before? And she gets the magnifying glass, and like when she's in the park taking pictures of the family, oh, there she is in the background. And my initial thought is that too touchy-feely nurse initially. That was the first thing that went to my head.
I kind of thought that simply because like she lit up a cigarette right next to her, and then when she was outside the window, she lit up a cigarette. And I was like, oh, it's her. But then I realized, oh, yeah, this is a French movie. Like everybody smokes. So, yeah, you can't like say, oh, yeah, the smoke. They were both smoking. So that's them. But no, you can't do that. So, yeah. I did think that at first. But then I realized, oh, yeah, this is a French movie. Everybody smokes. So,
right. The 3-year-old kid at the park was probably smoking too.
Yeah, most likely. As soon as the camera moved away.
Right. Yeah, then she calls her boss again and say, hey, can you get these kind of blown up? I need to prove that this woman is kind of stalking me, and she's been at my house. And then she goes, she's tired, and she goes to sleep. And then we get, all of a sudden, she's asleep very quickly, and the woman is there kind of all in black, and just kind of staring at her, like no indication of how she got in. There's nothing like that. But then what's really weird is the woman then proceeds to go through her house to where the nursery is, to like where these toys are, making an absurd amount of noise. In my opinion, for someone trying to be sneaky in the house.
I don't think she's necessarily trying to be sneaky. I think she's just got issues.
Right. So, she's trying to go through, she's, get in the bathroom, going through the drawers until she finds, like the biggest pair of scissors you could possibly find. Like these are like shears that are going to cut down like cut through chicken wire type levels.
Yeah, they're like old school fabric shears.
Seamstress,
yeah, they're like giant.
Well, it's like the scissors that they had in opera.
Yeah.
That the seamstress used. Yeah. So eventually, after going through all the stuff, she eventually goes into the room and, kind of cuts open. No, she lifts up her shirt and just like stabs her in the navel. And that's when Sarah wakes up. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's awful right then and there. Like, okay, you don't typically see pregnant women getting stabbed that graphically in movies.
No, not at all. Pregnant women are usually like, out of bounds.
Yeah. That she kind of fights her off a little bit. Now she gets like, I'd say from her left cheek across her lip down, slashed open pretty well.
Yeah, she gets, she starts swinging around the scissors like a mad person, and she gets cut a whole bunch of times.
Yeah. So, eventually Sarah's able to get into the bathroom, and, looks like the world's flimsiest lock, but, the mystery person is trying to stab through the door. She's trying to kick down the door, and like, zoom in on the tiny, 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 tiny deadbolt that's there. Like, okay, that's coming off. Surprisingly, it never does.
Nope.
Yeah. So, she's screaming. She's trying to figure out, bandage herself up, figure out what's going on here. And I believe this is a woman then starts talking about who she is, and why she's there. Right?
Wait,
yeah.
What?
The intruder says why she's there is just to take the child for herself.
Well, yeah.
But she kind of goes into it like, right, like, I want my own child. It was taken away from me. It's like, no one would have sex with a crazy person like you. All that stuff.
Right.
Is this where do we find out who she is, or at this point?
No, we don't find out that till the very end.
To the very end, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, no. At this point is when the doorbell rings, and that's when her boss comes to try to force her to come to the Christmas dinner.
Right, and she say, hey, but it's the woman that's there who he thinks it's Sarah's mother, which I don't know what that's an insult to her, because I don't think that woman was that old enough to be Sarah's mother.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pushing it. I mean, she was a little bit older, but yeah. She definitely wasn't like mother of a 30-year-old woman. No. Right? Yeah, she was not like, she did not look that old, but I don't know, maybe the guy was just being polite or something, or maybe, I mean,
yeah, but
your mind will convince you of a lot of things. You're like, who the hell else would it be, right?
Right, asking if she's okay. Yeah, she's prepping. I'm her mother. She does say that she's her mother, and all that stuff, and then promptly gets no. Then the mother does actually come in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then she's like, wait, who is this? And then after, Sarah's still in the bathroom. I think she doesn't hear Juan Pierre.
The mom comes in and goes, where the hell is my daughter, and who the hell is this?
Right.
And then she runs upstairs to like go find her daughter, and then the boss looks at the lady like, okay, well, that's obviously the mom. Who the hell are you?
And then stab through them.
Well, yeah, and then that's when, poor mom.
Yeah, he gets murdered. He gets stabbed to death.
Well, not yet.
And then someone's trying to.
Not yet. He's second. Mom's first.
Yes. Yeah. The mom is trying to open the door, and she gets a knitting needle.
I don't know what that is. She pulled it out of the bathroom drawer, so it might have been like one of those old school like hair things. Where they had like the big pointy hair thing, not like cut the chopstick, but one of those. Yeah.
And she thinks it's the woman there, and then she stabs her mother through the neck. Thinking it's the attacker. And then I think that's when Juan Pierre comes up there and sees it, and then he's stabbed.
Yeah, and he goes like, "Oh man, what's going on?" And then he gets like one stab with the scissors like through his knee, which is like, ow. And then he flips over going like, what the hell? And then she stabs him right in the crotch.
Yes.
And it's like lots of blood.
Oh yeah, there's a big artery down there.
Yeah.
In the leg.
Yeah, and then and then she finishes him up.
He bleeds out. Yeah. Meanwhile, then we see 3 cops in a squad car with a rider in the back. See, I'm not a rider, because they talk about there's like almost 5,000 cars have been set on fire from riots and all chaos kind of going in the streets.
Yeah, so they're basically showing the background of like real France, which has like riots all the fucking time. They riot over a lot of stuff. Right. So yeah, there's currently riots going on at the time, and apparently they caught this guy with Molotovs like ready to burn something, so they arrested him. But yeah, these are like the most like casual looking cops I've ever seen. I mean, maybe that's how like
clothes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe that's how like night cops look in France. I don't know. I mean, again, I've never been to France. I don't know France culture, but these guys seem like very like casual. Like they're just wearing like normal street clothes, but there's like 3 of them.
They seem like volunteers in police service.
Right.
Volunteers in police service type things. Yeah, and the guy's like, the rider's like, I don't even like Molotov cocktails. Ha ha ha. Showing his ignorance that he doesn't know that's not a drink. So, one guy is the guy who's driving is talking to his wife, and after this last check, we have some asshole on the back here with us. We got to take in and do the paperwork on. two other guys go in there. They aren't the same cops that were there before. But they go in there, start questioning. She's like, "Hey, yeah." The lady answers like, "Yeah, I'm Sarah. Everything's okay." And then they're like, "Okay, cool." And you're like, "Wait a minute, she's not pregnant." Like after the fact, like clearly not pregnant,
right?
So yeah, like, okay, arrest her, and then stab, stab, stab. And then she gets the riot gun.
Not yet. Not
or
yet.
Is it just a regular gun?
Well, yeah, because
so
one
gun.
guy stays back in the car with the Molotov guy
and the riot gun, yeah,
and he's got the riot gun, and then the one guy comes in and he tries to arrest her while the other guy goes upstairs,
right,
and then he sees the bodies, and then he's trying to get her out, to get her out of the bathroom or whatever. So she kills the one dude with I think
needle.
The needle, she like stabs him in the eye or something.
Yeah.
And then she goes upstairs and then she kills the other dude while he's trying to save.
Yeah, like his head gets half blown off right in front of her, of Sarah.
Right, yeah, because she gets the gun from cop one and she blows his head off, and then she manages to slam the door again.
Right.
And of course the other dude that was in the car now hears the gunshot. And then he's like, "Oh shit, I need to go in." And so instead of like leaving Molotov guy in the car, no, he has
him on a leash.
Yeah, he like cuffs this leech to like his pants, his belt loop of his pants, and he drags the dude in, and he's got like his
literally drags him.
Right, he's got like his gun in one hand and this like double-barreled riot gun in the other hand.
Yeah,
and he goes in there. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah, so they go in there and see the aftermath. The perp is like puking because quite disturbing scenes that he's going across. You're like, stop, untie me, stop bringing me through this crap, man.
Right.
But they get to the door, and this time Sarah's a lot more open, and she realizes it's the cops, and the intruder's nowhere to be seen at this point in time. Like they keep kind of panning, like the guy who's arrested, his back keeps panning over the way. I kept expecting for her to appear in the doorway. But they're trying to get her out. They're starting to. Then the lights go out. So they're having like use a lighter to try to see their way through. They're trying to help her through into what she goes into her bed. I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's kind of hiding there behind her bed. She's not in good shape. She's gotten a lot more damage to herself. And then, the cop and his tag-along leash arrested guy are going through. She shoots the one officer again. And then the guy they arrested gets the scissors right through his forehead.
Right.
Like halfway through his head.
Well, she shoots the cop with the riot gun, but right next to his head.
Yeah.
So like it's supposed to be a non-lethal gun, but like if it goes off right next to your head, like it
explodes
still lethal.
It. Yeah. It explodes it. And the guy manages to take out the scissors from his head and then kind of just collapses and is dead. So she's going back, and they start kind of. She's in the kitchen. They start like attacking each other. Like toasters are being thrown. All the stuff. She's choking her, and I think when Sarah's like about to die, that the lady lights off her cigarette, and Sarah's already there with like an aerosol can and just burns half her face off.
Right.
At least. She tries to run, and then she's kind of there, and then this is where we get the story now, right? Of why you hear. She's like, "Oh, I was in the other car because the very pregnant one we show was actually her." that, Sarah's like, oh, I was told there's no survivors. Well, my baby was taken from me. Now this kind of revenge. I want your baby and all that stuff. So we get that backstory, and that she has been stalking her. She has been following her because she ruined her life, and she wants her baby now. So she's gone crazy, kind of rightfully so. And then we find out the cop survived the riot gunshot, but he's blind, I believe. He can't see.
Yeah. Well, it appears that like the riot gun like burst his eyeballs because it looks like he's just got like empty sockets and like blood's coming out of his ears. So like, I don't think he can see or hear anything. So he's like a zombie kind of.
Yeah. And he starts attacking Sarah because he doesn't know who it is, and she's like beating her in the stomach till her water breaks, and like, she's already got jabbed through the belly button. She's gotten a lot of damage. She was stabbed through the hand. She was all this stuff. Even she couldn't even breathe at this point.
Yeah.
So she takes that just all-purpose needle and then like stabs herself in the throat to be able to breathe again. And the effects on this are pretty good for like the blood coming out. The attacker eventually comes and kills the officer, and then Sarah's kind of stuck on the stairs, unable to do much or move because she's giving birth, and she's like, hey, the baby's stuck, can you help me? Essentially. And then she essentially then gets a House of the Dragon cesarean.
Oh, yeah. She just cuts her wide
Rips her open.
Right.
To like she's dead. And then the ending shot is with the woman holding the baby and kind of rocking it and singing the lullaby.
Yep. That's
it. And we saw that just the huge cut in half almost Sarah on the stairs dead. Eviscerated.
Yeah, with a big hole in her stomach where a baby was.
Right. So, my first thought on this was I thought this was a completely different movie.
I know you did. When we were talking about it, I was like, I don't think he knows what movie this is.
I got mixed up with some other movie, and I think the other movie I was thinking of ended up being worse than what this was. But no, like I was watching this, I go, oh yeah, there's no way in hell the wife would watch this. Like, I'd tell her about it. She's like, yeah, that was a recurring nightmare of someone doing something, almost getting cut open to steal your baby. And obviously it has to be a natural human instinct to have that, and it's natural to have that fear and everything like that. But I mean, this movie was good. I mean, it was it more taboo than High Tension? Absolutely. You generally don't. Pregnant women generally don't get killed in horror movies.
Well, yeah, pregnant women are usually the ones that are safe. It's usually like if you're a pregnant woman in a horror movie, you're most likely safe. Right. You're most likely going to be like shipped off somewhere and not be where the danger is.
Correct. But that just kind of shows how extreme the French were going with this, because this was generally a taboo thing, and they went for it, man. And you know what? And good on them for that. Like I said, it wasn't, as a father, like this didn't disturb me in what, like I said, I Spit Your Grave or a Serbian film or anything like that. It just seemed to me, once again, a natural progression of where the movies would have been in America. And I think that's is a good example of that as well. What was your first thought and rewatches on this?
Yeah, I mean, just the rewatches on this is, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it. I just kind of forgot how like savage it was. Yeah, like a lot of the kills are just kind of like they come out of nowhere, or they're very unexpected. Mm-hmm. And but they're also kind of like realistic, right? There's not like, usually like, horror slasher type movies, they're always dead in some goofy way, right? Like some kind of showy way. And there's no show at all. It's like people just die in totally normal ways. I mean, yes, it's horrible when they die, but it's not like, crazy, big stage piece kills or anything.
Right.
It's interesting. And it all takes place in like basically one house. Like there's no other, so there's like the one scene in the hospital and then the rest of it just takes place in this house. And that's it.
I would say almost real time. Maybe like 3 hours, the rest of it. It's a very short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, it's one evening. Right.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I mean, it just, I guess over time, some of the edge of like how gross some of this stuff was, it faded away. But yeah, I mean, I still remembered most of it, all the nasty stuff I remember.
Yeah, but once again, it's as you said, it's not a set piece, it's not elaborate, it's not the showmanship of kills as slashers were. It's very realistic type body mutilation, let's say.
Right, yeah, it's realistic, it's savage. I mean, obviously, like there's horrible stuff happening, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's not like the big puffed up stage pieces that they usually have in horror movies.
Right. All right. So what are your highlights then for this movie?
I really like the way it was shot. Like I mean, it's kind of like a weird, like almost like an art house vibe to it, like the way it was shot. Like especially like in the beginning when like she's like falling asleep watching the TV and we see her like slowly fade in and then like slowly fade out behind her. Like. Mm-hmm. I mean, just stuff like that. It's where like, the camera's focusing on kind of, just kind of off center just to kind of put you on ease and stuff like that. Just, I mean, the camera angles when the kills and stuff are happening are they're interesting choices. I'd say there's kind of like almost like an art edge to how it was shot. And I dig that a lot. I also like the sound in this. There's not really like a score. There's no like songs or music in the background, but there's like these really weird, kind of like shrill sounds that are happening when like, horrible things are happening on screen to kind of emphasize them. But most of the time it's just kind of like quiet.
Right.
And then it's like, at certain times when like bad things are happening or bad things are starting to or going to happen, like there's like the weird like kind of tapping, clicking, screeching noises, and it's I don't know, they were a good one. They really do what they meant to do.
Yeah, it's you're right. The atmosphere is good. It's what you expect from like it's like an artsy indie movie meets extreme body horror.
Right.
Yeah, with the camera angles. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, we watch a lot of slashers where nothing happens. No, there's like no spoken dialogue for like 20 or 30 minutes, and there's no music, and that is unnerving in itself. But this way, yeah, it's creepy. It's atmospheric. It's I said the progression. I could see this once again. See this one in the Argento lineup as well. If he continued doing that path, if he ended up continuing being good and all this stuff. And you felt everything was real. Like not real, but like you felt the impact, you felt the trauma, you felt the damage being done. As it being realistic, not like, oh, there's a 10-foot geyser of blood coming out of your, stabbed hand.
Right.
And the acting, I think the acting was amazing, and I think they did the craftsmanship of the pregnancy, was good. It wasn't like an over the top, like as we discussed with Unwelcome, where her stomach's like 3 feet sticking out of her.
Yeah, that one was not realistic, but this one is very realistic. And they show like the belly a lot, and it looks like a pregnant belly. It does not look fake at all.
No, and it's done perfectly well, and I like that. I think that's exactly what it needed to be. What about low points for you?
Low points. Okay, there's a couple of scenes that use CGI in this movie, and I think they are very not well done. One is all the goofy baby scenes.
Yes.
Like they're like weird. Like sometimes they'll show like what I guess the baby is seeing like inside of her. Like at the time, it's bizarre, and they're totally out of place. And I think they're not good looking because again, this is like early CGI stuff, and it's not done particularly well. It looks very fake, and they just kind of put it in there. Like I understand you're going for like the kind of arty edge of like, oh, this is what the baby's experiencing, but like it doesn't look great, and it just doesn't. I don't think it adds anything. I think it kind of takes away, and I think that wasn't great. The whole fire thing, like the fire was like this bizarre like effect that like it made the fire look like super fake. So like when the fire thing happened, I was like, how did she get burned? The fire looked fake as hell. Like looked like nothing happened. But the fire was very, very fake looking, but that was also CGI.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know I always harp on animals in these movies, but the poor cat. Like this, she had a black cat that like was like shown a couple of times as like being her like pet, right? And then like the lady's like waiting outside the door, and the cat comes up to her, and she just like grabs it and just like goes crunch, and then throws it, and that's it. It's just like this very like this kind of off scene that like I was like, why we already know this lady is insane. She stabbed a pregnant lady in the belly with a pair of scissors. Like we don't need like to know that she's a bad person at this point. Why do you have to do that?
Because as we discussed before, they're French, and only French and villains are allowed to smoke, and since she's French, we had to know she's a villain some other way.
Again, at this point she had already stabbed a pregnant woman with a pair of scissors. We know she's a bad person. Like there's no doubt in anyone's mind that she's gonna murder somebody today.
Correct.
Yeah, and then I'll just tell you that the scenes that make me go like, yay, like I don't like that is one when she's giving herself a tracheotomy.
Yes.
That is like God, like could I ever do that to myself? Like that's horrible.
I don't think I could.
No. But the thing is, like, she gives herself a tracheotomy, and then like she can breathe fine immediately, and then she just tapes the hole up with duct tape like 10 seconds after she does it.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, so like the thing that was blocking your airway is still blocking your airway, so putting the duct tape over the hole, now you can't breathe again. Like, what are you doing? Like, okay, you know enough to give yourself a tracheotomy, you should know enough not to cover up the hole in your neck. I guess it wouldn't make sense that she was like talking afterwards, but like then why bother having that scene in there?
Correct.
Anyway, I thought it was still a well done scene. It's just goofy, like that whole thing. And then the scene where she's like cutting into her pregnant stomach at the very end. That scene is like, yay.
I mean, and they really left it to the imagination because they don't show it. They show the aftermath, but the sound effects are there.
Well, they show the first like couple of cuts.
Yeah.
And that's the part where you're like, because it looks like real skin. It looks like she's just cutting through flesh. I mean, it's
let me cut up this piece of pork belly.
Right. Yeah. It looks like cutting through like a bacon back or something. It's like, oh dear God.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that make me cringe a bit. Like, I knew of them because I'd seen this before, but it's still like uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And with low points, baby, I mean, it's not like dancing baby Alec McBeal bad, but it's still pretty awful.
Yeah, it's around that quality.
It's the cut scene, the alternate ending to Butterfly Effect when he's and choking himself with the umbilical cord. It's that level bad.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen that.
Well, yeah, the funny thing, the first time I watched Butterfly Effect, I watched that ending. I thought that was the normal ending. No one told me any different. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I watched that, and I was talking to somebody about it later on, and I was like, yeah, that was an interesting ending where he killed himself in utero. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? That's not how the movie ends. I'm like, No, I did. I saw it. I know. I saw that part. I know that's how it happened. It's like, that's not what happens. Well,
Yeah.
what do you mean? So yeah, I had no idea. It was probably a couple of months in between before I had to watch it again. And so like, wow, this is weird. Where did my ending come from? And yeah, I realized that I had watched, because like they had like the director's cut or whatever.
Yep.
And like, so in that case of the movie, they had two different discs. One was like the original cut and one was the director's cut. I watched the director's cut, not knowing it was like a different ending. I thought it was just more stuff added in.
No,
it was like a very totally different ending and everything.
Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely my low point to that baby. But something we didn't mention yet is so far bad endings. Right? We love bad endings.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, all of these movies.
Yeah,
there's none of these movies end in a good place.
Dude. But that's what makes them good. You and I both really love really bad endings, and in these scenarios, it makes sense. It's not a bad ending just to be a bad ending. It's like, yeah, shit's got real,
right?
Like,
I guess that you could say the best ending out of these would be High Tension. Simply because she survived. Well, I mean, her whole family was killed in front of her, basically, but she does survive. But apparently, also the villain also survives.
Correct. Set up the sequel of Higher Tension.
Yeah, Hot Tension 2,
Electric Boogaloo. I'll go first for number of cigarettes out of 10 on this. This was good. Like we discussed, especially the highlights of this taboo horrorness, and like not extreme, not over the top. Yeah, it's some discomfort in it, but overall, though, I think it was a pretty solid entry. I'm disappointed it took 16 years to actually sit down and watch this. And trying to determine if I like this more or less than High Tension. They're two different movies. 8.5 as well. I had 8 cigarettes. I had to finish. Partially finished the last.
Well, yeah, I was. You got called back into work before you could finish your whole break.
Right. Yeah. How about you here, Sam?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's 8.5 cigarettes out of 10 for me too. I like it just a bit more than High Tension, just because it does take that extra step further than High Tension, but I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. They're both good, but I think the inside is a bit better.
Yeah, I before we get into our third one, I'm just going to say this is another weirdly like solid week for us. We don't have many of those.
No, it's very rare to have all good movies. So yeah, spoiler. Well, at least I think so. I can't speak for you. I think so.
Oh, I completely agree.
All right.
I completely agree that somehow we've gotten another good week.
Right.
We'll pay for it in October, I promise.
Right. Okay. So we'll roll into our next movie here, which is Martyrs, which is 2008.
Yep.
So yeah, this movie opens up with a child, a girl, like kind of
11.
Yeah, 11-ish, escaping from like what appears to be like a kind of rundown industrial area. And she is like dirty and like abused, and she's wearing just like, like a t-shirt and underwear, like, bloody, dirty, like, her hair is all like, it looks like it's been cut with a lawnmower. I mean, it's like not in a good place, right? And she's just like running down the street, like running for her life almost. And they're just kind of like screaming, right? Yeah. And then it cuts to like her in like an orphanage. So where, surprise, surprise, she's not dealing well with normal life. Like, weird. Yeah, after all of this, you could just tell all the torture that happened to her. So yeah, so she's not dealing well with normal life. She's kind of basically only got like one friend, and she only lets the one friend get close to her. Everybody else has to be like to stay away, and she'll like panic and freak out, when they get close to her, and she's like, very, very, antisocial, which, again,
rightly so.
Right. So we do get to see a glimpse of like some kind of like I don't know, like a dark version or like a dark woman, right? That seems to like attack her or be like a kind of a catalyst for when bad things happen.
Yes.
We just get a kind of a glimpse of it. We don't get a whole lot of it, but we do see that it's some kind of dark female entity that like comes at her when she was like left alone and she was like upset. And we get to see that. And then that's basically it cuts to like the future.
15 years later.
Yeah, so yeah, it's like 15 years. Well, I don't know if it's 15, but whatever. It's in the future. They're like women now, right? So essentially we cut to her name. What is her? Lucy is her name. That's the girl, the abused girl. What was the other one's name?
Oh crap!
I don't remember. I don't remember. But I know her. The girl name is Lucy. Anyway, so she is. She basically we're at like this home. You know, we're like introduced to like mom and dad and the boy and the girl.
I'm sorry, Anna.
Anna, okay.
Anna, yeah.
So Lucy is the kind of off base one, and Anna is kind of the one that tries to like help her deal with the world. You know, she's kind of like her emotional support human. So yeah. Right. So we're kind of move to the fast forward to the future here, and we're like seeing this family. It's like mom and dad and like, you know, boy and girl, but they're like, you know, older teenage children. And they're like having like a normal day, like making breakfast and like talking to each other and like talking about their day and what they're going to do and blah, 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 stuff like that. And there's like a, you know, like a knock at the door, and they answer the door, and it's older Lucy, with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And the dude answers the door and he's like, oh, what? Boom. Just blows the dude away. She runs into the house. You know, mom tries to run away. Boom, gets shot in the back. She reloads the shotgun. The one girl runs and hides like in the back room, but the son is like kind of stuck at the table. And she's like, don't move, don't go anywhere. You know, like, do you know what they did? And he's like, I don't know. And we get kind of a moment where we see her hesitate. Boom. She shoots that kid too. She runs back to where the girl ran in the room. The girl tries to run away from her. Boom, gets shot in the back. So basically all these people are dead. And so she goes back out to Anna, who is now like in a car, like kind of down the street. You know, asking her like, oh, did you check up on them? Is it them? Is it, you know, did you find out? And she's like, yeah, it's them. She's like, okay, so like, what are we going to do? And she's like, yeah, they're like dead. you gotta come see this. So she goes in the house and, yeah, she sees the aftermath of this and she's like, oh shit, like what happened?
Right. Yeah.
And she's like, oh no, like my life is over. Like you can just see it on her face. Like, my friend has truly snapped and gone off the deep end of like, this is like, what are we going to do? Like she murdered a family. So she's like, you know, asking, you know, trying to like ask her, like, how do you know it's them? Are you sure it's them? And she's like, yes, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure. And so basically we find out that, she was looking through a newspaper and saw a picture of this couple. And she knew immediately that these were the people that had tortured her as a child.
Right.
And again, at this point, we're kind of like, you know, are they? Aren't they? Like this, they seem like a normal family. Like, you know, even Lucy seems like she's not sure at sometimes, you know, like Anna's kind of like, are you really? Like, this is all bad. Like, what's going on? So, you know, it's kind of like leaning towards like, this is messed up. So, she's like basically helping her to clean everything. And she just kind of sends Lucy away to like go cool off. And she's like dragging all the bodies like into the bathroom and like, you know, trying to figure out what to do is where she's going to like bury them or whatever is going on. So she gets like the two bodies out, in this big hole in the backyard, and she goes to move the mom, and the mom's like still alive. And so she's like, oh, don't move, don't say anything. And she goes outside, and Lucy's like kind of losing her mind. Like, what are we, we need to get out of here. What are we still doing here? And at this point, she's like, oh, we'll be fine. I just got to get all these bodies out of here. You just, go cool off. I'm almost done. And so she goes in the other room, and then that's when this dark entity that we saw just a glimpse of earlier in the movie, like fully comes out. And it's like a woman that's like, I don't know, super like scarred up and messed up and doesn't talk, just like mumbles and kind of screams and just like straight up keeps attacking her. And like, like grabs a straight razor and is like cutting all over Lucy's back, and chasing her. And she's like, trying to get away. Anna, like every time Anna kind of goes to like help her, the woman is gone, So at this point we're kind of like, is this a real person? Like, is this a hallucination? Like, what's going on? But it's basically like, we figure out that, this is kind of like a hallucination that she's having. And this hallucination is doing horrible things to her, right? Obviously cutting her back and doing that stuff, but she's doing this to herself. Yep. And Anna knows that, but she can't tell her that because, again, it's going to cause her to have an incident. So at this point in time, we're basically like, okay, like Lucy's just crazy. She's now gone completely over the edge. And like her poor friend Anna is now an accomplice to all of this murder. Right. So Anna, so we're kind of rooting for Anna at this point to like save the woman who's like going to survive this whole thing. So, Anna goes to like try to save the woman. It's kind of like helping her out of the door while Lucy's in the other room, like kind of sleeping off her hallucinations or whatever. So like as she's doing that, of course, Lucy comes down and sees what she's doing and murders the woman. And then proceeds to have like this crazy fit. So where like she, we see like going back and forth, kind of like how High Tension was, to where it's like we see the crazy scarred up woman and we see her, and then we see that, like literally cutting her entire arm open, like starting up by her shoulder and like slicing her whole arm all the way down to her fingers open. Yeah. On both arms. And I'm sure she would have died from that, but apparently that wasn't fast enough. So she also like sliced open her own throat. And so she's just like dead. Yeah. And so as that happens, we get a flashback as to like her escaping when she was a child. And we see that, like somebody did, have her like tied down to a chair and was like abusing her. And it was a woman, and it was a blonde woman. We can't see her face. The mom was a blonde woman. We can't see her face. We're like, okay, well, somebody was. Is it her? Is it not? We don't know. And she like trips and falls and hurts her foot, and she manages to like escape and run out. And as she's escaping and running out, she hears a woman screaming and moaning in another room. And she opens the door to that room, and she sees another woman is, strapped down to a chair like she was, but has obviously been there for a lot longer. Is like covered in scars. It looks like her tongue's been cut out. And
she's in much worse.
Yeah, she's in much worse. It looks like she's probably started off at the same level as her, but has been doing, things have been happening to her like another like 10 or 15 years. Like it's bad news.
Right.
And then essentially that's what we see. Like this is what's been haunting her whole life, is that she didn't save that other woman, because when the cops finally did search that place, they never did find the woman or they didn't find either woman. So they know where she was, but they never found who it was. Like they never got any information. Like everything was gone by the time the cops got there. So at this point, like, okay, great. Like, like what are we supposed to think now? So, she's dead. Anna is like trying to figure out what to do now, because this is just a bad thing. So she tries to call like her parents, her mom, and her mom's just kind of like guilt tripping her. Like, oh, you went hanging out with that Lucy again, didn't you? Like, I haven't heard from you in years, and now you're calling me back. Like, you're probably in trouble. She's like, no, I just wanted to talk to you, And anyway, it's bad. So, she just kind of puts the phone down, and then goes and, just like hangs out with Lucy, who's like wrapped up like a corpse, I guess, like just sitting on the couch. And she's like, oh man, like, what do I do? And then she kind of, I don't remember how she does it, but she ends up finding a secret passage. like in this cabinet, right? And she opens up the cabinet and she goes through it, and there's like a hallway, like it looks like a medical hallway. It's got like a medical like check-in station, and there's all these weird like light up posters on the wall, and they're all like people that are like dead in bad ways. Like you're talking like people that look like they're being like crucified or beaten or burned and like all bad stuff, right? So she goes all the way down. There's like a weird clean room thing, and then it goes into like a cell. And inside this cell is a woman who is like all scarred up and beaten and messed up, and naked, except for she's got like a weird metal helmet thing that's like covering her eyes. Looks like a VR helmet, only it's just like metal and like literally nailed into her head.
Also like a chastity belt.
Yeah, she's got like a metal chastity belt thing on, and that's it. And she's like chained up. So she like, finds the keys and unlocks her and is like trying to like help her, I guess, I don't know, go back into the real world. But like, I mean, like, I don't know how you would do that. Somebody that's like that level of torture, right? So yeah, she like, pries the nails out of the VR helmet and gets the helmet off. And then like, gives her like a bath. And then kind of puts a blanket over her head so like the light won't hurt, right? And then she goes to sleep, which is odd, but and then she wakes up and she hears like a noise, and she goes and looks, and the lady is awake now and is like literally like cutting chunks of flesh off of her own arm. And so she like takes the knife away, like, what the hell are you doing? And the lady's like freaking out, like smashing her head on the wall and like just trying to like rip her own skin off, it looks like. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? Right? Boom. The shot rings out. Lady is dead. And like these like SWAT team kind of people come in going like, who the hell are you? Where are the couple that live here? Who the hell are you? And they basically like just kind of like lock her down. They search the whole house. They basically find out what happened, that, they got killed, and like, well, how did this happen? Like, like what could we possibly, how could this have, done? Like we kind of planned for all this stuff. And you find out that, yeah, they were, some kind of like, I don't know, cell, like some kind of like spy cell that was doing this in secret. And these people are kind of like the enforcers. And because they didn't answer when they like, called their check-in time or whatever, they knew something was wrong. So they came in and shut it down. They eventually figure out that Lucy was the girl that got away. And they're like, oh, well, there was that loose end, right? She got away and she came back and killed her. That was her own mistake for letting her go. Right. You can tell there's a whole lot of like feelings for their employees. Like, yeah, whatever. It was her own fault. So they basically go, well, that lady's dead. Lucy's dead. Yeah, we got to kind of continue our project here. So this lady, why don't we just use her? So they take Anna and lock her up, just like the lady was that was locked down there before. Thankfully, she doesn't get the metal chastity belt or, VR helmet, but she basically gets stripped down and left in the cell. And we see like a level of torture that happens over time where she gets beaten and like force fed and just, bad things happen to her. Right. And in between we get kind of these little snippets of like what's going on, to where like this lady they just call her the Mademoiselle. They don't say her name or anything. She like she's like an old lady, but one of those like, old lady turbans. Mm-hmm. And she's like, super, kind of, you could tell she's like super rich and powerful kind of person. And she shows her all these pictures in like her little photo album she's got. And these are the same pictures that were in those light up posters on the wall. And basically she's explaining that all of these people died horrible, painful deaths, but they like accepted the pain. And because they accepted the pain, they were able to see beyond this world into the other world, right?
Yeah, the veil between worlds.
Right. They were able to see like the veil between worlds and able to see the world of what the afterlife is while still alive. And so they call them martyrs. Like that is what their purpose is. That's what all this torture and stuff is about, is they're trying to create martyrs. And it seems like they're trying to create martyrs because they're trying to find out what these martyrs see. Because although they're experiments and stuff, they've gotten people to see the other side, but none of them have been able to explain to them what it is. They've only gotten like little snippets of it. So they basically are putting her through the same process. So they're like torturing her to the point to where she's like literally like insane. And then they put you through like intense, crazy pain. And then that's supposed to like be the catalyst for you to see the other world. So that's what they do to poor Anna. They torture, beat her, psychological torture, all that kind of stuff. And then at the very end of that process, they literally flay her skin off. So where
let me say that guy was a master of his work.
You can tell like this has been done before. Like these people are professionals. Like this is their job. Like they know what they're doing. This is not amateur hour. This is people that are doing this as a job. And so it gets her skin flayed off. The only thing left is her face, and then we get to see like literally the musculature of underneath her skin. And then essentially, we see that she has seen the other side, and the Mademoiselle says, she's seen the other side, and she's still alive, and she's still talking. So Mademoiselle drives super fast over there. You think she would have been there waiting, right? If they're doing like the big reveal, like she should have just been there, but whatever. But she was able to talk to Anna for a while. I think they said it was like 30 whole minutes she was able to talk to her. Right. And then since then she has gone non-communicated, she can't talk anymore, but she's still technically alive. And so like all of these like rich people gather together for like this get together. So where they're all like apparently a part of this, I don't know, secret society or group, whatever this is. And these people are, very interested in knowing what this person said, because this is the whole purpose of their group, is to see what's beyond, right? To create these martyrs so they can find out what's on the other side before they get there.
Yeah, and they are all older people too.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, when you're thinking like typical older, like rich people, that's what all these people look like, and that's what they act like.
Think the old white people, and Get Out.
That's right. Yeah, that's you can tell it's very rich people, lots of money. Right. So basically, Mademoiselle is like kind of looks like she's gonna prepare for her like speech, but it's like she's doing it in reverse, to where she's like taking off her old lady turban, she's taking off her fake lashes, she's like wiping off her makeup. And the guy is like, they're ready to hear what the martyr said to you. Are you ready to be out there? And she's like, yeah, I'll be out there in a minute. And she like literally just puts a gun in her mouth and just pulls the trigger.
Well, tell him, you'll have to find out for yourself.
Yeah, you'll have to find out for yourself. And she puts a gun in her mouth and pulls the trigger, and then that's it. The end.
Yeah. Yeah, that was I'll say this: Mademoiselle reminded me that she could have been one of the three mothers in Argento.
The way she was first presented, yes, it's like when she was first presented, she was very, very cold and like very, very indifferent to all like the horrible shit that they're doing to people, because she thought she had a purpose.
Correct.
Apparently that whole thing fell apart when she actually like talked to Anna. Like whatever happened shook her to the core, the point where she literally just killed herself.
Right.
But yeah, before that point, yes, very much so. She was very much like this, cold kind of either evil calculating mother type. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I know I keep talking Argento, and that's one of my basis of non-American horror movies has been really rooted in. So I try to make comparisons to that just to see how I compare it to what we had watched. So what was your first thought and rewatch, I guess, on this then?
On the rewatch, because I knew the big points, right? But the first time you watch this is really like wow, you're like, whoa, these twists hit you, and you're like, what is going on? Because like there's like 4 big twists in the movie, right? because it's like, one first twist is like, oh, this chick is just insane. She just murdered some random family because she's having like a flashback, right? Like there's, like what's going on. And then, the first twist is, oh, wow, she was right. You know what I mean? Like she was right. This is horrible, but she's already dead by that point. So she doesn't even know that she's right. She's dead before she finds out. And then the second one is like, oh, not only was she right, but it's like, it's still going, right? Yeah. There's like, there's another person there. There's another part of this. And then there's another twist of going like, oh shit, it's still going like forever. Like there's a whole organization behind it. And the fourth and final twist is like, yeah, and you're now a part of it.
Yep.
So congratulations. So yeah, see, she got to see firsthand what Lucy went through and what made her the way she was.
Right. And yeah, I did you get anything on the rewatch though?
Not really. I mean, yeah, because I already knew the main points. So it was once you already, again, it's like high tension. If once you already know that big twist, you're not going to get more to it. But this one is like, there's not that goofy mystery that to try to figure out. It's just it just twists around. It just things happen that you don't expect.
Yeah. I, without having seen this before, this is my first watch. I still knew about this movie from the stuff I do watch on YouTube and stuff like that. People talking about like really extreme movies, and this comes up a lot. And also, once again, we'll do the unnecessary remakes. We'll talk about the American version of Martyrs and how it took forever to get made. But for me, it's like very modern horror for American modern horror to, let's say, 2015. Like it felt like it fit into that era. And it is, I go, wow, this is amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns into it as you're describing, because she's seen like a ghost, an apparition of the woman she didn't save, and she's gonna attack. Holy shit, it's not the woman, it's her. She's doing, her psychosis is so bad, she's doing it to herself, and the survivor's guilt is there.
Right. And then she kills herself, and you're like, wait a minute, this movie's like an hour and a half long. This is like 25 minutes of the movie. What the hell is the rest of this movie going to be about?
Right. And I'll say it again. That's kind of like Argento. It's like, oh, you're introducing all these people. 40 minutes later, here's the real protagonist of the movie. Yeah.
Well, it's like Inferno. I don't even know if it has a real protagonist. No. It just jumps to different people.
No.
The real protagonist of Inferno was the hot dog man.
Right. And you're watching this, holy shit. Like they are this is like a Hellraiser type movie, especially with the flaying. And I told you this morning that, like, holy shit, it reminds me of Julia from, Hellraiser 2, especially.
Right.
Which looked juicier in Hellraiser 2 than it did here. This probably was more realistic.
Well, this was this one was also in a medical environment.
Well, yeah,
they had her in like suspended in like burn gel and stuff. So like, yeah, I'm assuming it's a lot more clean in this one than the other one.
Yeah. But you always, the idea of it is not something new of people experiencing stuff in your death. And that's the point of Hellraiser, is that the pain gets to a certain point that it's euphoric. And I think they did a fantastic job of showing that euphoric state of too much pain gets you to that, like, not quite dead, not quite alive state. And the lengths that let's call it a cult or a club, old rich white people club, of trying to figure out what the hell happens when you die. As I was shocked that it was a like group of people funding this stuff for, they said, at least 20 years. They've been trying to figure this stuff out.
Well, yeah, at least we don't know exactly how long, but yeah, at least.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I can see why people in America probably would have issues with this, and that's probably why the remake didn't do so good either, because they probably changed a lot of this shit, because her in the as a child in the underwear and that shot was very last I spent in your grave,
right,
the brutality was just over the top, let's say. But the idea is that the human body can endure a hell of a lot of things before it dies, and they went to that length in this. Now, do I think the wife would watch it? I don't know. Maybe.
Like I said, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that, I mean, if you're bothered by body horror, you might be bothered by, like,
yeah,
when they find that lady like tied up in the basement, like that's, for people that are can't put themselves in situations of like victims like that would be a hard one.
It was a very Jigsaw apparatus.
Right.
So when we go into your highlights, what are your highlights of this movie?
I like the way they did the camera movement in this, because like when people were doing like crazy stuff, or when there was like crazy things happening, they did like this kind of like weird camera shake, which usually bothers me. I usually hate when they do that, because they usually do it like when people are like running, and it's just kind of like what they do when they're doing like the super cuts, where they do like 6 cuts like super fast, to kind of show Bay. Yeah, like Michael Bay, or like like Liam Neeson in Taken 3, whatever it was. What was the one where there was like 20 cuts when he was like jumping a fence? Whatever it was,
like 5 seconds.
Right. So it's like that kind of stuff. They like the super cuts, but they move the camera around a lot, like in fight scenes and stuff. So like you don't quite know exactly what's going on, But they didn't do like that in this one. They just kind of emphasized like when crazy type stuff was happening, they used the camera kind of shake to kind of show that like the brain is kind of shaking a bit, like something psychological is happening here, like it kind of unnerve you like that. I like the way that they did that. Obviously I love all the twists in this. Like I said, it starts off being one kind of movie, and then it switches like multiple times. So we're like, what movie you think it is switches multiple times. So we're like, where it ends is nowhere. You could not have guessed where it ends from that beginning.
Oh yeah, from the unhingedness to home invasion to cult to like religious sacrifice.
Right, yeah. It's like there's no way you're gonna guess where this is going.
No, not at all.
I do like that. I like when movies take you on a journey that you're like, I don't know what is happening, but I like it.
Yeah.
That. And then the ending, this is not only like a bad ending, this is like terrible ending. Because like, I mean, obviously the protagonists that we were introduced to are all murdered in horrible ways. But then like the whole product of all of this murder, like again, doesn't even get used. Like the lady just like, yeah, whatever, like screw you all, and just kills herself anyway. So I mean, it's great that those old rich people don't get the answer they were looking for. Like that's a positive note. But like it also is like, what the hell is the point of all that? Like all of that horrible suffering and pain is now useless, and those people are going to keep doing it.
Right.
But
and
again, terrible.
I completely agree with you on everything. And like I said, everything was not unrealistic. It wasn't over the top. It was like what you expect realistic body horror to look like through all this shit. And the whole flaying, unfortunately Nick Cage wouldn't like this because her face wasn't taken off. Take his face off.
Right. The opposite of face off. Everything but the face.
Right. And yeah, so you're gonna have this. But I do want to pose this question before we get into our low points: is what do you take her to have seen, Anna to have seen, to cause the Mademoiselle to do it? Do you think she knew it was going to be a good thing, therefore she went there anyway on her own terms, or do you think it was like all this is for naught?
I think it was. I don't know what it was, and I'm not going to try to, tell you what it was, because I think that would take away from it. But I think it was basically something that unraveled the Mademoiselle. Basically,
broke her brain.
Well, I'm not going to say it was like such a revelation that it broke her brain. I was going to say that it's something that basically she either realizes that her whole life's work was wasted and worthless. Yeah. Or she realizes that all of the things that she's doing to find that answer basically, kick her out of anything good that would have happened. So I think it was one of those two things that would lead her to just kill herself and just say, screw you to all these other rich people.
Right. So that she proved that there was a heaven, and that what she did to prove it was not, she was never going to get
right.
there.
Yeah. Something like that would be one. Like, obviously, like, yeah, great. I know the answer now, but I'm going to hell for sure for finding the answer. Like, that sucks. Or it's just like, it was something so stupid that, like, upset her that she went through all of this and then that was the answer.
You know what? She probably ended up on the island with the dog next to her dreaming and lost.
Yeah, or she was.
This is what we have. Right.
She was in the snow globe at the end.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited. I agree with you on the high points. It was what a ride.
Right.
What a ride.
Right.
Not expect, like, I don't think any 2 or 3 minute clip explaining this movie can ever do it justice. I don't think we can do it justice in the 30 minutes we've been talking about.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, like, yeah, you show a 2 or 3 minute clip. Yeah, that's going to be one of the sections of the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to understand that, like, okay, that's one part. Now there's like 3 other parts that are totally unrelated to that part.
Storyline B.
Right, exactly. And like it twists and then the movie completely changes.
And it does it beautifully. Like, we've watched so many bad movies where we're just like, it's such a disjointed mess. But this does it beautifully.
Right. Yeah, and like I'm really curious to see what they did with the remake to make it so bad. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I just know that all the reviews have been really, really bad.
But we don't always agree with these reviews, as we have.
It's true. Like I said, that's why I'm interested to see what they did.
Yeah. What about low points then for you?
I mean, low points would be like the torture. I mean, the torture. I don't like watching. I don't like watching like a young girl get beaten for like 20 minutes, which is like. There's a section of the movie where it's just like watching her get beaten and force-fed like baby food. It's for like, I don't know. I don't think it's like, maybe it's like 10 minutes long, but it's like a longer than you needed section of the movie of her just watching her get beat.
Pummeled.
Yeah. I mean,
pummeled.
Yeah. It's like this dude that's like, I don't know. He looks like, the typical like mob enforcer guy, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Built like a brick wall, just like, fists, like
hams.
Yeah, like fists like hams, like this, just beating on this, girl that's like, I mean, what, like 1/3 of his size? I mean, she's she's tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, punching her in the stomach, throwing her against the wall. I mean, like, it's bad. It's like, what is happening? And it goes on for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't particularly enjoy watching that. I understand it's needed to like show where the story is going. I get that. I'm not saying we should take it out. I'm just saying it's hard to watch. And then of course, rich people. I don't like rich people. I don't like rich white people in large groups are never a good
thing. No. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on there. And I'm not saying it's low point. I call it a surprise point that the children of the evil parents just got blown away too. I was really surprised by that. As we discussed, you don't generally see. I mean, yeah, it still took forever for America to even show if it's not an evil child
right.
to get killed on screen in horror movies. That's still once again a taboo that we've seen throughout these 3 movies we watched. Is just another taboo that the new French Extremity kind of hit on. Is like, these kids probably are not part of it right now.
Right.
Would they have grown into it? Probably. You know what I mean? Right. I think they would have continued it.
That's the thing is, they showed like later on they had like another couple move into the house. So like, I mean, those kids may have not even been their kids.
Right.
they might have been employees, actors that were told to just pretend. Because there's no way that you could live in a house and not know that there was a secret fucking dungeon in there. It's like the cabinet to get in the dungeon was like in the kitchen. It's not like it was hidden somewhere. It was like in plain sight.
Yeah.
There's no way they didn't see somebody go in or come out of that.
For all we know, they could have been like the daughter in Get Out. Is that they're the ones that found these people to get tortured.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
their ages initially of these younger people, teenagers generally getting abducted to do these torturous things. So they could have easily been the fetchers that, that got them.
Yeah, I mean, again, that might just be the pessimist in me thinking that, but I mean, they may very well have been their kids. I don't know. I mean, that's not explained at all.
No.
But it's interesting that one person does survive at least for a little while, and it's not one of the kids. The kids are just dead.
Dead.
Yeah. Just
dead. Would you consider this a bad ending?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad, like I said, it's a terrible ending because not only does everybody die, but like the whole reason why everybody dies is wasted at the end too. So like there's not even a product at the end of all that.
Right. And the way Mademoiselle, left it is these people don't have their answer, so they're probably going to continue to do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like again, like nothing gets resolved. Just continue the grind.
And Anna's still alive, yeah?
They said she was still alive, but I don't think she's gonna live for very long. I mean, I don't.
Right.
But yeah, they did say she was like fading out, but they did not ever say that she was dead. So I mean, she very well could have still been alive at the end.
That's a horrible ending, to be left alive in that state.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, it would hurt to do anything.
Yeah, very much so. All right. Well, then, how many cigarettes out of 10 would you give this
movie? This one, I will give 9 cigarettes out of 10. I like this one very much.
Yeah, I am in the same boat as you. I'm also giving it a 9. This was definitely the best one of these three, even though the most graphic and bad. But
right,
like the story just was there. Like I said, we've watched. And we haven't even begun yet. There's so many bodily horror movies that have no purpose other than body horror. To have that story driven behind it too was just perfectly almost perfectly executed for that. So yeah, I mean, we'll see if we ever get past this thing. I don't think we're going to. If that's like. I would probably rather watch Evil Bong before watching a Serbian film again.
Yeah. I've done it once. I don't. Yeah, it's gonna take a major something to make me do it again.
Right. So, all right, cool. Why don't you go ahead and bring us out then?
All right. Maybe the walls don't have ears, but them there hills have eyes. This will be a first for us. We're going to watch the remakes in the same episode as the originals, and we're going to find out how they compare. We're going to do the Hills Have Eyes. We're going to do the first one and the second one, and then the remake of the first one, and then the sequel to the remake. So, Hills Have Eyes 2. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's a remake of the 2. I think it's just a sequel to the remake. Because I think it was a totally different story. I know I've seen the original. I know I've seen both the remakes. I don't think I saw Hills Have Eyes 2, the original sequel. So I don't know if the sequel is a sequel to the sequel or if it's a sequel to the remake. Unrelated.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've watched all of them. I can tell you that at least one of these is going to be not fun to watch. It's
right.
bad. Not like these movies, but like it's a bad movie.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll find out how they compare. So join us next week as we dissect the different adaptations, see which one is superior. And remember, we watch bad movies so you don't have to.
This has been Graveyard saying, "Have you checked on the children?"
And this is Salem saying, "Long live the new flesh."